Did you know that milk ingredients is usually not just milk? And often foods with milk ingredients do not even contain one drop of milk. Do you look at the ingredient list when you buy a processed product? Hi, I'm Denise, and welcome to Food in Focus. This is a segment of my channel called Soul in Focus. Today, I'm going to walk you through an ingredient list of some common foods. And this is just to give you a little bit of ammunition for when you are choosing a product. A lot of times you believe that you're getting a certain product or certain ingredients in your food, but often you might not be. You might not be getting anything like what you think you're getting. And this has not completely everything to do with the nutritional quality, although that's part of it, but it's just so that you know when you are getting something, what you are actually getting. Now, if you have a food allergy or sensitivity or a medical condition, such as diabetes, you're likely already checking the ingredient list for ingredients that pertain to your particular condition. This video takes it a little bit further than that. Now, just to get you oriented, the ingredients on any product, no matter what the product is listed in predominance of weight. So the ingredients that take up the most weight in the product are listed first, and then it goes in descending order. Okay, let's get started. First, we have one of the most basic processed foods, if you even want to call it processed, orange juice. It is what it says it is. Agreed? When you look at the ingredient list, it's just orange juice. It's just the plain juice. Now, this has nothing, like I said before, this has nothing to do with the nutritional benefit of the product. We are just looking at the ingredient list. If you are looking to reduce or eliminate, say, artificial flavors and colors, then you will be looking for products that just give you the basics. So often with something that's called an orange juice might have things like added sugars. It might even have some extra color or other things added to it just to differentiate the product. But this product here is just plain juice. So if that's what you're looking for, that's what you want. Okay, so let's look at another product, yogurt. Okay, well, that's pretty simple, right? Wrong. Some yogurts have added ingredients like starch and modified milk ingredients, and this tells you that there's more to this product than just processed milk. You see, milk ingredients is usually not just milk. It is one or two ingredients from the milk. Sometimes milk ingredients might have powdered skim milk in it, but often it does not. Often the ingredient that, say, might be in your favorite hot chocolate that you think is just milk and cocoa and sugar and a few other things like maybe flavors, but it might not even have a drop of milk in it. If it contains something called milk ingredients, and you don't see anywhere that it says that has milk. You see the ingredients in milk, one of which is sodium caseinate, and they are not required to list that on the label if that's what it has. Often products like Coffee Mate will list that because they want to say that they are dairy free, and so saying that we don't have milk in our product is what they want to say, and so they'll say they have sodium caseinate, which is actually a milk ingredient. And also they might put lactose in your favorite hot chocolate. So those would be considered milk ingredients. Now, the nutritional value of lactose it's just a sugar, and the sodium caseinate is a protein derivative. It has very little nutritional value to it, so it's not, you don't get all the goodness of milk. When you have a product that is milk or almost 100% milk, there's going to be a lot of protein in it, and there's going to be a lot of calcium, and also there's a lot of vitamins, there's a lot of minerals that come in milk. Milk is almost a very complete food product. And if it has milk ingredients, it does not have that. Now, when you look at the nutrition facts table on a label, it doesn't tell you all the vitamins and minerals, all the nutrients. It only points out certain things. And so if they add calcium and they add protein, it might look like this is a milk product, but often they don't do that either, but it might look like it's a milk product when actually it just has these milk ingredients and not even a drop of milk. That's really important. Sodium caseinate is what gives milk that milkiness, that milk sort of mouthfeel, and that kind of, I don't know, that unique sort of texture to milk. And if you see something that has milk ingredients, you should be a little bit suspicious that it's not what you think it is. So here is a yogurt, and it's one of the cheaper brands. And the ingredients is milk ingredients, modified cornstarch, carrageenan, pectin, bacterial culture. And carrageenan is actually an additive. It's a natural additive. It's not harmful, and it's for emulsification, and likely in this case to thicken the product. And pectin is also a thickener, and the cornstarch to thicken. You see, for this product, because it's not a real milk-based yogurt, they have to put stuff in it, quite a bit of extra stuff, just to thicken it up to make it seem like it's an actual yogurt. But it's a cheaper brand, so if you're looking just for the kind of that yogurt sort of a kind of a flavor and the feel, then you would choose that if you're looking for something much cheaper. But here is a more expensive brand of yogurt, and the ingredients are skim milk, cream, bacterial culture. Period. Just the basics. You cannot always tell from the nutrition facts table that the product is what you think it is. So that's why to look at the nutrition facts table plus the ingredient list, that gives you a more complete picture of what is in the product. Okay, so let's move on to another dairy product, cheese. And surprisingly, another one that could be a little bit complicated, as some cheese is just cheese and some is not. Well, not quite. Okay, so this is cheese number 1, we'll call it. Unpasteurized milk, salt, bacterial culture, annatto, and microbial enzyme. And this is a pretty good example of an authentic cheese. Okay, so here is another cheese. This is made from pasteurized milk, modified milk ingredients, salt, bacterial culture, calcium chloride, microbial enzyme, and annatto. Again, the milk ingredients makes its way into the ingredient list, and not surprisingly, because it can make the product a lot cheaper, and it's very, very common in products. So look for that if you want like an authentic product. I'm not saying stay away from it, but just be aware, be suspicious that it's probably got some fillers in it. And it doesn't make it entirely bad, but it does raise that suspicion that it's not what you think it might be. Okay, so now let's move on to butter and margarine. Now, butter should be just butter and sometimes salt. And that's usually the case. When you go to the store to buy butter, there shouldn't be anything else with it. They haven't found a way to add something to butter to give it a different appeal so they could raise the price or make it cheaper. But usually butter is just butter. And sometimes you can get butter that is grass-fed, and usually it's the same ingredients. They usually contain cream and bacterial culture. That's really standard. And the grass-fed ones, a lot of people will go for the grass-fed. It's more expensive, but just to get less saturated fat. because there is a claim that the grass-fed has more saturated fat. I'm not 100% sure on that, but a lot of people like the flavor, and they just like the fact that it is grass-fed. So there is that option. Okay, and so here is margarine, and this is one of the standard types of margarine that's in the tubs, and it's made from canola oil, water, avocado oil, modified palm and palm kernel oils, salt, buttermilk powder, natural flavors, and lactic acid. Now, if you are concerned about health effects and are choosing margarine as a healthier substitute for butter, this one might not be so bad. Just be aware that palm and palm kernel oils are highly saturated fats. And so you're when you're choosing margarine, you're not totally getting away from saturated fat. And the distinction between butter and margarine, which one's better, which one's not so good, that's a matter of your own decision. There are pros and cons either way. But when you look at the ingredient list of this margarine, it does have some healthier fats, and they add vitamins at the end, you notice, to imitate what would be naturally in the butter, because these are very highly processed oils that they use, and whatever goodness was in the oil, you think it's a vegetable base, so you're getting the goodness of the vegetables. No, you're not. You're just getting the macronutrient. You're just getting the fat. Everything else goes out with the bathwater. And so if they want to bring some of those natural vitamins back that come in fat, like natural fat, then that's what they do. They add it to it, but these are additives. Okay, and here is another margarine. Now this is a cheaper brand, and it looks like this one has a lot more modified palm oils, and it also contains milk ingredients. So this is a very cheap one. And honestly, when you're looking at the health effects of margarine versus butter, not all margarines are created equal. The butters should be, pretty much, but the margarines definitely are not. And this one probably is not a very healthy margarine, just because it has a lot of modified palm oils and modified milk ingredients, which is, they're trying to imitate the butter. All right, so now we move on to a box dinner. And this is pretty typical of what you would find in a box dinner. So you have, the basmati rice. So this is a rice and chicken meal. In a box dinner, they give you the ingredients of the separate parts of the meals separately. And so that's why, you have the rice, okay, that's on its own. And then the seasoned chicken breast fillets, chicken water, modified cornstarch, sodium phosphate, and salt. And then you got the diced tomatoes, and then, they give you the what is in the diced tomatoes. And then the water, the onions, the coconut milk, and et cetera, et cetera. So this is very, very typical of a box dinner. And when you're looking at this, there's usually things like cornstarch in there for thickening agents, and on an ingredient list, they're allowed to say spices, and they don't have to tell you what spices, and they're allowed to say flavors and not tell you what the flavors. And so if you need to be gluten-free and you're looking at say, you know, some an ingredient list, especially when it comes to these dinners, because they put so many different things in it, and it's usually very exhausting going through the list. But check to see if it says flavors, unless it says gluten-free on the box, and usually they're really willing to do that if it is gluten-free, because then they can charge more, but not always. And so, you know, if you're looking for something that's gluten-free and it doesn't say gluten-free and it says flavors, be very wary, because the flavors could contain gluten, because they don't have to tell you what is in the actual flavors. And when they're listing the ingredients, when they list ingredients, they're listing it in the descending order of weight, like I said. But when you have a list of ingredients inside an ingredient, so for example, the chicken breast, and then they give you the ingredients of that, they are required to do that. They are required to give you the ingredients of an ingredient. And it would be in descendant order of weight, but that clump of ingredients that's the weight of all of those together. So for example, if a product has a lot of different types of sugar in it, so sugar has like many different names. It's got dextrose, maltose, high fructose corn syrup, molasses, you know, there's a lot of them. There's at least 10 different things that are called sugar. And on an ingredient list, they are required by law to put all those sugars together. And if all those sugars together weighs more than the next product that in the heaviest of weight, then that would be listed first. And they never used to have to do that. That only came about in the past couple of years, where before you could have, you know, sugar and then maltose, and it can be sprinkled anywhere in the ingredient list. And so it looks like there's not a whole lot of sugar, but when you add it all up, that's the main ingredient. So they are required to do that now. So when you look at an ingredient list, that's why it says sugars, and then it lists a bunch of sugars. And we will get into that when I'm talking about a cereal. One of the ingredients in this box dinner is sodium phosphate. And just an interesting fact about that, that is one of the things that they can give you before you have a colonoscopy, and that's to clean out your colon. And so if you have large amounts of sodium phosphate, then you will need to use the toilet. It will just clean out your system, but don't worry about it if it's in a small amount in an ingredient, even if you have several different foods that have sodium phosphate and it's in such a small amount. But when you go for a colonoscopy, for any of you who have, you know that you're going to be needing to be close to a toilet for several hours afterwards, but don't worry about it with this. All right, now let's move on to bread. Okay, so we have, and this, you know, we love talking about this here in North America. For those of you who may not be in North America, who maybe you just moved here and you're wondering what is that stuff in that bag? It's standard North American style bread. And here are the ingredients: enriched wheat flour, water, yeast, sugar, wheat gluten, vegetable oil, salt, defatted soy flour, calcium propionate, sodium stearyl isolate, I believe, vegetable monoglycerides, sorbic acid, enzyme, ascorbic acid. And so this is really standard for bread in North America. And I know that bread normally only has 5 ingredients, right? Bread, it's got water, flour, sugar, salt, yeast. That's it. but you're not going to find that in North America unless you go to a bakery and they're doing the baking themselves. Then yeah, if you really want bread, if you're craving bread and you're not going to make it yourself, avoid the breads that come in those plastic bags, because it's going to be this. And so let's break this down. So wheat gluten, so they add extra wheat gluten to it, and wheat gluten is just a protein for, it's bad for some of us, but some of us, there's really nothing wrong with the gluten that's in wheat. It's just that there's a lot of people who cannot tolerate it. And so don't worry about that. It's not poison. And so that, and it helps with the gooiness, the binding. It helps it bind, and you notice that the bread in North America is very gooey. And there's also calcium propionate in there. Now, what is that? Why would they put something like that in there? Now, that's a salt, and it's a preservative. It prevents mold, and so normally bread doesn't last very long. It'll go dry within a day, and a couple other days it'll go moldy, especially in warm weather. And our bread doesn't do that. It can be on the shelf in 30 degrees Celsius for days, and it doesn't go moldy, and it doesn't go stale. And it's because of the stuff they put in it. And the calcium propionate, it's a preservative, it prevents mold, and the sodium stearyl lactate improves volume. So that's what makes it so fluffy. So you notice that the North American bread is like really, really fluffy. And the other things, the enzymes that they add, they want to make the bread really quick. And so you add something to the yeast to make it grow faster. The yeast will raise really, really fast with these extra enzymes. And so you can make a lot of bread in a short amount of time. And that's about it. And ascorbic acid, that's just vitamin C, that they want to preserve it longer. And let's be honest, bread doesn't keep for very long. So, and this is going to be on the store shelf for a little bit. So, and it's going to be in people's fridges. And in North America, we just assume that our bread is going to last for a long time. Okay, so this is also very similar. So this one has almonds in it, and it also has inulin. Now, inulin is a fiber. It's a very versatile kind of fiber, but basically it's a fiber. So whenever you see inulin, you go, oh boy, what is that? It's not harmful. It's actually quite good for us. It's good for our colon health. And this has sugars. It's got honey, glucose, and cane sugar. And this one has palm kernel oil in it. So it's got some saturated fat, probably not a whole lot because it wouldn't be an oily product. And this one has natural flavor. So if it doesn't say that it's gluten-free, then it might not be. And yeah, it says it contains almond milk and soy. And so when something says it may contain, usually it doesn't. And if you are sensitive to something, say you are sensitive to gluten, but you're not celiac and you wouldn't be really, really sick if you did ingest a small amount, a tiny, tiny amount of it, you can decide for yourself whether or not you want to take that chance. Now, the reason that they say it may contain is because they probably are manufacturing this in a place where they are manufacturing something like, say, if it says may contain soy, so they are manufacturing things that have soy in them, and there could possibly be some contamination, but usually not. They would try to make sure it doesn't. But in the case, if they did not put that may contain on the label, and then it was found out that it was contaminated with a little bit of soy, then they would have to recall that whole product, that whole line of product. And it's very expensive for them. It's very time consuming for them. And also it can damage their reputation. So they try really hard not to do that. Okay, so let's look at some common ingredients that might make you wonder. So some of these ingredients in these foods contain something called monoglycerides. So let's break that down. Mono means one, and glyceride means fat. So anything that's a glyceride is a fat. And monoglyceride is just a fat. Normally, they put monoglycerides in things to help to smooth it, but don't worry about that. It looks like a bad word. It looks like something a little bit scary, but it's usually not. And it's normally in there at a fairly small amount, but it's just a fat. Now, when you're looking at an ingredient list and you see something that ends in "ose," it's almost always a sugar. There's very, very few exceptions to that, one of which is cellulose. Cellulose is a fiber, and it's very much related to sugar, but it's that would be the one exception that I can think of right away. But anything that's like maltose, dextrose, fructose, sucrose, anything ose, just be aware that that is sugar. And anything that is a sodium is a salt. So if you are trying to reduce your salt, and you're looking for something and this has no salt in it, but it's got sodium this and sodium that, a lot of the processed meats are really, really high in sodium, and you might not even see salt written on the ingredient list. But take a look. This is where it would be handy to look at the nutrition facts table just to see how much sodium is in it, because the processed meats, they have to put sodium in it to preserve it. And usually it's high amounts. And so if you're trying to stay away from salt, then look at the nutrition facts table along with the ingredient list just to see what is in it. So another one that you see very commonly in foods is calcium chloride. And calcium chloride is used as a drying agent, usually. And too much is harmful unless you are consuming lots and lots. You don't have to worry about it. But yeah, it's not going to be harmful in the amounts that you are eating. But if you want to reduce your chance of have harm from calcium chloride, then reduce your consumption of the highly processed food, because that is almost always. And that is it. So that is it in a nutshell. We looked at a few of very common processed foods, and I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you for watching, and please subscribe if you like this and when you would like to have more content like this.